It's always an interesting experience coming up here, and this time it's a new experience for me here. But it's great to be here, and just making myself comfortable, just like it's my space. It's been a while since I have been speaking in front of people, but it doesn't really get easier. I was talking to Colin this morning about that, and I was hoping that my son would jump into Pathfinders and start doing Master Guide. And one of the things that you do there is you have to teach an honour, and he's a bit apprehensive about that. So I just want to encourage him. I was talking to Colin about that, and for those of you who know Colin, it's not like he's nervous, or he doesn't look like he's nervous when he gets up in front and speaks to people, but certainly he just regaled a little story to me that the first time he did public speaking, that he was behind and his knees were literally knocking together. And I remember back when I first started teaching, I was 19, and I was 18, first year at university, and I was teaching a year 12 class who were older than me. So how much did I really know, And so when I come before you now, I'm thinking, how much do I really know before God? Like we're finite and God is infinite. How big is the gap? So with that in mind, I might just bow my head and have a prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for the blessing of this week and in preparing and crystallising the ideas and the concepts and the analogies that you've blessed me with understanding. And Lord, I just pray that your words come from my lips. And I think of the prophet Isaiah when the angel took a burning coal from beneath the throne of God with tongs and touched his lips and purified his lips for your service, Lord. And I just pray for that now. And may you be seen, and especially your love as great are you, Lord. I just pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. So where are we? I was actually going to say a little bit about myself, but I've been teaching for a long time. Last year was my 25th anniversary, so it's been a while. And in that time, I've done a whole range of jobs, and most recently just working with teachers and guiding them and coaching them. So it's been 10 years since I first became into the SDA church family. And when I first came in, there was a lot to learn, I really wanted to know how things worked and how God works. And so this is a culmination of kind of my analogies and my concepts of how I would present the gospel, I suppose. But one of the first things that really struck me was I had a conversation with a guy in his 70s, and he spoke about two elderly Jewish guys having a conversation about theology, and they're really into it. It's back and forth. It's like table tennis, like your turn. And then at one point, a guy gets stumped. And he pauses. And he thinks, because you've got to put your hand to your head when you think, remember, right? It helps. And then his friend says, well, what you need to say next is this and this. And he goes, oh, yeah. And then away they go again, And if you were onlooking, you would think it's quite a robust conversation. And then these guys get up and walk away, and as my mate says, they share a bag of nuts, bag of peanuts. And that just typifies what I really love to understand about what it is to talk about God. Because We should have like a free expression of ideas that allows the refinement of the concepts that we have in our mind and our picture of God and who we are. And it reminds me of my favourite quote from a really old bloke. And he says it's the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without agreeing with it. And that comes from Aristotle. And I've always thought about that, because if you're able to compare and contrast two opposing thoughts in your mind, you can weigh it. And God says to us, come, let us reason together. Let every man be fully convinced in his own mind. And a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still, So the title of this message, and I couldn't condense it into 1 week. I wasn't able to. So I hastily rang Jeremy yesterday morning, and then Billy last night, because I said to Bill, we've got to take the last song out because I need that for next week. So thank you for doing that, Bill. And so this is part 1 of Harmony with God Heals. Where are we pointing? We point to that thing? Okay, who likes birds? I'm a big fan of birds. Can you see a bird there that you like? Look at the beautiful colours. Eagles? They are. What type of eagle is that? Absolutely. There's 2 Australian ones down the bottom. There's like my favourite birds. And then you've got the hummingbird up there. Wonderful, wonderful creations. The colours, just magnificent. And one of my favourite sounds is the warble of the magpie. But when I was like a young fellow, I didn't really like the sound of that. I think, anyone been swooped by a magpie? Since I've loved the warble as an adult, I've never been swooped. I always look at love and admire the magpie. So what I love about birds is that obviously they have 2 wings, and for a bird to fly, they must have beautiful balance in their wings. And so what I'm going to talk to you about is 2 things. One is obviously theology, and one is methodology. And to me, they're like the 2 wings of a bird. Now, I'm going to draw a whole range of analogies about that left wing, right wing political spectrum as well. Okay? Because we'll get more to that. But what is our end time message? Because we're clearly in the end times. It's all happening. The toenails, the dirt's there. We've got dirt in the toenails. So what is our end time message, and what message are we sending? And I ask those 2 questions because we need to be congruent when we are talking to people. So these to me are the main 2 messages, I think, in Adventism. The 3 angels message and the sanctuary message. So we're going to do the first one today. Is it going? Again? Okay. So turn now to Revelation 14, verse 6 and 7. We're going to look at the first angel. And hopefully we should kind of know this off by heart. Because here we have John the Revelator, old bloke, he's on the island of Patmos. He's being given a vision by God. Okay? And in this vision, he sees many things, and he sees another angel flying in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach to who? To everyone on the earth, every nation, tribe, kindred, tongue, and people. And it says with a loud voice, and it's the first angel. So how important must that be? It's the first angel, and he's saying it with or he or she, with a loud voice. He. Fear God and give glory to Him. So let's just have a read of this message on here. to prepare a people to stand in the day of God. A great work of reform was to be accomplished. God saw that many of his professed people were not building for eternity. And in his mercy, he was about to send a message of warning to arouse them from their stupor, to lead them to make ready for the coming of the Lord. And this is the message. This is the first angel's message. Fear God with a loud voice. Fear God and give glory to him. So what does it mean to fear God? Like I had to really redefine what that meant. Okay? So this is the most important message. It's the first angel, and he says with a loud voice. We could look at Proverbs 9. There's a whole range of text there. All right? What is Proverbs 9:10? If you'd like to go there. Perhaps we should know that one. You know, it's the beginning of wisdom. That's what to fear God means. Okay? It's the beginning of wisdom and knowing him and knowing who Jesus is. So the most important message that I get here is that we need to know who Jesus is. We need to know who God is. Because you tell me your picture of God and I'll tell you your theology. What kind of God, leaves people in hell and burns them every day? What kind of God gives them a skin every day so it can be burnt off them? That's the God of the Quran. That's a Catholic God. Is that the God that we believe? I hope not. An Orthodox God. I like Proverbs 15:16. So, in the fear of the Lord, there is strong confidence. Like if you put afraid in there, fear, let's read that again. If I'm afraid of the Lord, there is strong confidence. Huh? Doesn't make sense, does it? So in the fear of the Lord, there is strong confidence. So in knowing God, there is strong confidence. And you know God, you know who you are. You know who you are in God. So fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come. So let's look at judgment. And there's 4 types of judgment in the Bible, all right? We talk about investigative judgment. We're studying that in Hebrews at the moment. Awesome. There's other types of judgment. One judgment I want to touch on here is if we go to a courtroom scenario, because in the beginning, iniquity was found in someone, wasn't it? And where was Lucifer in the beginning when iniquity was found in him? So he's in heaven, in the very presence of God, yet sin was found in him. So how can God be in the presence of sin? So that's a doctrine that's taught. Yet here's the very beginning of the controversy, and we see that God is in the presence of sin. So that makes me scratch my head as well about what things are taught about God. So let's talk about this judgment again. So the hour of his judgment. So if we have a courtroom scenario, because we weren't there in the beginning, we weren't even created, we were thought of, all right? I guess you could say we were a twinkle in God's eye. But the crime occurred. They were cast out of heaven, Satan and a third of his angels. And then here we have Adam and Eve, the beginning. And they were without sin, and then they fell. So they got to choose. Do we get to choose? But what's different between us and Adam and Eve is that Adam and Eve were sinless. We were born into sin and conceived in iniquity. We didn't have that choice, but we do have a choice to choose God. Okay? And so we get to choose if we believe Satan or we believe God. So we could consider that his judgment is we are judging who God is. Or we are judging who we're going to choose, just like on Mount Carmel. All right, so fear God, give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come. And worship him who made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that even there are. Thank you. So worship him who made. So the emphasis here is on the creator God. All right, so worship the creator God. So what I want to do is I want to look into creation and go, well, what do we see in creation that shows us a loving God? Because if we go to Romans 1:20 now, can we go there? What does Romans 1:20 say? Someone got it? Romans 1:20. Notice what God says. Romans. John. If someone has it, say amen. All right, would someone like to read it for me? Okay, so in my version says the invisible attributes of God are seen from the things that are made. Yeah? So even Paul is telling us, like, you can see who God is. His invisible attributes, what does that mean? Intangible, character, like we talked about last week. What is the character of God? Who is God, if I may know him, that gives me strong confidence? Now, I can't read that one. So, in the opening of the great controversy, Satan declared that the law of God could not be obeyed, that justice was inconsistent with mercy, and every sin must meet its punishment, urged Satan. Okay? Every sin must meet its punishment. So justice is inconsistent with mercy. Remember the bird flying? Justice and mercy. And this is what I saw when I first came into the church. I saw there was so much talk about theology. There was so much emphasis on theology and truth and justice on the right wing political spectrum. And I thought, well, what about the love of God? What about his mercy? Okay, so I saw people that were on both spectrums. And then I read this quote and I go, well, Satan said that justice was inconsistent with mercy. And I can see that playing out theologically and methodologically in the lives of my brothers and sisters. So for a bird to fly or soar, we must have beautiful balance. So we can't have one extreme or the other. We need a harmony of both. And understanding the character of God, knowing his goodness, Satan chose to follow his own selfish, independent will. His choice was final. There was no more that God could do to save him. But man was deceived. His mind was darkened by Satan's sophistry. The height and depth of the love of God he did not know. For him, there was hope in a knowledge of God's love. There was hope in a knowledge of God's love. Fear God. Give glory to him. Fear God is knowing him. And here Ellen White is saying in The Desire of Ages that there was hope in a knowledge of God's love. By beholding his character, he might be drawn back to God. He just might. And I'll tell you like something that rocks me to my core every time I think about it. 7th of February 2014 is the day that a matriarch in my life passed away. This was like a second mother to me when I lived in England. She was from Mauritius. Husband was English. I lived with them for 18 months when I was playing football and cricket, and loved them to bits. She passed away from ovarian cancer. So fast forward 12 months to that very day, the 7th of February 2015. 5 days prior to that, I break my back very badly, and it takes 12 months. So I can't even get around and drive. That was the Tuesday. The Sabbath turns up. Guess what day that is? The 7th of February. And it's summertime, and the alarm hasn't gone off. I'm in bed, and the light's coming through the top of the curtain, and I just pulled the bit of scarf that I have and put it over my eyes and went back to sleep. And immediately I was asleep. And I thought, well, that's weird. I don't usually go back to sleep really quickly like that. And then I thought, wow, that's really weird that I'm cognizant of the fact that I didn't go back to sleep very quickly. And then this image is before me. And I'm in this courtyard, and there's arrayed before me to the horizon all these little dark coffee tables, like a row of 5, all the way to the horizon, all the way coming over to here. And it's like this agora, this amphitheatre here, and it's dark. And there's something sitting and moving on this coffee table over here. And I'm being drawn towards it. And I go, well, I don't want to be drawn towards that. And I look down, and my feet aren't even moving. I'm levitating towards it. And so what's the quickest prayer you can say? Help me, Jesus. But nothing happened. And then I go, help me, Jesus, help me, help me. And at that point, there was a zoomp right here. Zoomp. And these lightning bolts coming down all over the place. Zoom, 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 zoom. And I just felt completely at peace. And I felt the depth and the breadth and the width and the height of the love of God in that moment. And I looked back at this person trying to sit up out of darkness on the coffee table, and God speaks to me in the only way that it's not in words, but it's like, that's you, Kyel. And the way you're looking at that person sitting up out of darkness now is the way I want you to look at people. That's how much I love you. And I wake up, I reach over and grab my phone. The alarm still hasn't gone off, but there's a text message from my mum saying that great Auntie Lily passed away this morning. 12 months to the day that Georgie passed away, the matriarch in my life. God knows how to speak to us, doesn't he? So that was irrefutable. And so at that moment, I'm all in. I'm all in. So that is a knowledge of God's love. He showed me exactly how much he loves me and how much he loves all of us. So fear God and give glory to him. So the last great conflict between truth and error is but the final struggle of the long-standing controversy concerning the law of God. The long-standing controversy between the law of God. Upon this battle, we are now entering a battle between the laws of man and the law and the precepts of Jehovah, between the religion of the Bible and the religion of fable and tradition. We've already been to Romans 1:21. I got ahead of myself. But let's jump to Matthew 5:43. Okay, 5:43. Let's go there with me now. Matthew 5. That's Ezekiel. I want to go to Matthew. Come on, Matthew. Where are you? Matthew's here. All right. Matthew 5:43. There we go. I knew I had it bookmarked. So Jesus said, You've heard that it's said, you shall love your neighbour and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies. Bless those who curse you. Do good to those who hate you. And pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you. That you may be sons of your Father in heaven. That you may be representative. That's what that's saying there. For he makes the sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the dikaios and the adikos, the just and the unjust. So notice what kind of a creator God we see here. He pours out his blessing on the just and the unjust. So let's jump to the law of love, the principle of giving upon which reality operates. This is how God designed things. So if we look at the water cycle, we've got, evaporation happens. So the oceans give their water to the clouds give the rain to the land gives the rain to the streams give their water to the rivers give their water to the lakes, and the lakes give their water to the ocean back. And it's a never-ending circle of giving and receiving. Where does the Jordan River flow? Does the Dead Sea give its water flowing back to the ocean? So what happens when you break God's design? In this example, this is an object lesson. The Dead Sea doesn't give its water back to the ocean. It doesn't flow back. And when you take and take and take, and you don't give back, God tells us in the Dead Sea that this is what happens. It's a natural consequence. It's a natural consequence. What about the law of respiration? If you are so selfish and you say, that's it, I'm not giving my carbon dioxide to anyone else. You can stick a plastic bag over your head, and the natural consequence is, again, death. Because the plants give their oxygen to us. We give their carbon dioxide, and it's a never-ending circle of giving and receiving. Plants and bees, yeah. So what do bees do? Like, bees give their industry to the plants. Plants give them nectar and actually pollen, and then they go around and they cross-pollinate. And so we get fruit and nuts because of this circle of giving and receiving. And that's a law of God. That's the law of love. What are we at? Okay, so here's a whole range of laws, okay, that where's the laser? Is that it? Yeah, okay. So, law of liberty. Right, so love can only exist in an atmosphere of freedom. You can't hold a gun to your wife's head and say, love me, or you're dead. And what kind of a God says, okay, love me, follow me, otherwise I'm putting you in hell and you're going to burn? That's not a loving God. So there's a whole range. I think I need to skip past this because there's a whole range of them, all right? I've been through several of them. So the law of truth, this is the one I really wanted to focus on, okay? So we're talking about the knowledge of God, right? Okay, fear God, give glory to Him. So fear God is knowing Him. So when you know God and you know the one true God, it does things to you. It does things to your heart. So you can never avoid the truth. You can only delay the time that you deal with it. But what happens when we do? We embrace and accept it. It displaces lies. Perfect love casts out all fear. Let's go to 1 John 2, 14 to 17. I think that's it. 1 John 2, 14 to 17. No, 1 John 4, 17 to 19. Okay, hello, dyslexia. Welcome back. So, 1 John 4:17-19 says, "Love has been perfected among us in this, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment, because as he is, so we are in this world. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves torment. But he who fears has not been perfected in love. And we love him because he loved us first." There's a whole lot in that. Love has been perfected among us in this, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment. We've been talking about, the sanctuary this morning, and it had to be purified as the high priest going in, but they also had a rope tied to them, didn't they? Because sometimes they weren't purified and they could have died in God's presence and had to be pulled out by the rope. So, yeah, I won't go with that thought. I might just move on, actually. So if we look at verse 18, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. Okay, it casts out selfishness as well, because we look at the character of God as outward moving. It's other-centered first. It's not self-centered. It's not selfishness. So perfect love casts out fear and selfishness. And that's what truth does. Truth refines. And we love him because he first loved us. So this is the character of God. We really need to be clear and have that crystallized in our mind about who God is. All right, so there's some more creation evidence. The last great conflict. Did I just go backwards? I think so. Yeah. Okay. And the law of love. All right. So here's Isaiah 55:11. My word does not return to me void. There's a circle. So God gives first and it returns to him. And that's what happens with truth. Truth will always bring you back to God, the originator of truth. Let's jump to Ezekiel, because this is the point I really wanted to make. So let's go to Ezekiel 1:15 and 16. This is beautiful. When I read this again this week, I was like, man, this is exactly the point. So let's go there and notice what God says in Ezekiel 1. Because here we have Ezekiel in vision. Okay? He's been given a vision of the throne room of God, basically. Well, actually, maybe not the throne room, but a picture of God on the throne. And I want to just start here in verse 15 and 16. Now, as I looked at the living creatures, behold, a wheel was on the earth beside each living creature with its four faces. And the appearance of the wheels and their workings was like the colour of beryl. And all four had the same likeness. The appearance of their workings was, as it were, a wheel in the middle of a wheel. A wheel in a wheel, a rotating wheel within a rotating wheel. And it symbolises a whole range of things. But you've got that never-ending circle of giving and receiving that we can look at. Let's go to verse 26 to 28. Notice what God's word says. And above the firmament, over their heads, there was the likeness of a throne, in appearance like a sapphire stone. On the likeness of the throne was a likeness with the appearance of a man high above it. Also from the appearance of his waist and upward I saw, as it were, the colour of amber, with the appearance of fire all around within it. And from the appearance of his waist and downward I saw, as it were, the appearance of fire with brightness all around. So who's this? Who are we looking at here? Verse 28. Like the appearance of a rainbow in a cloud on a rainy day, so was the appearance of the brightness just halfway around it. Is that what it says? It says all around it. Amen. All around it. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. Now, what does that mean? All right, let's have a look. Something like that, maybe? Have you seen those before? I've seen the one on the beach in the morning. Full. But it's a wheel within a wheel. That one's even better. And so imagine the vision from Ezekiel with a man on the throne in the middle there, the four creatures around, and the creatures have the wheel within a wheel. The symbolism is there. A never-ending circle of giving and receiving. That's the law of love. The servants of God know that He's working to counteract Satan's plan. Those who know not God, and there it is again, the knowledge of God, fear God. Those who know not God cannot comprehend His movements. There is at work a wheel within a wheel. Apparently, the complication of machinery is so intricate that man can only see a complete entanglement, so just a small bit. But the divine hand, as seen by the prophet Ezekiel, is placed upon the wheels, and every part moves in complete harmony, each doing its specified work, yet with individual freedom of action. That's the church, is it not? Individual freedom of action. The wheels were so complicated. This is a different reference from Prophets and Kings. The wheels were so complicated in arrangement that at first sight they appeared to be in confusion, yet they moved in perfect harmony. Heavenly beings, sustained and guided by the hand beneath the wings of the cherubim, were impelling those wheels. Above them, upon the sapphire throne, was the Eternal One, in capitals. And round about the throne was a rainbow, the emblem of divine mercy. The emblem of divine mercy. A rotating wheel within a rotating wheel. The full circle rainbow. So we return to this. Let's go back to Revelation 14, verse 6 and 7. And I saw another angel flying in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel. Fear God, no, he says with a loud voice. First angel saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment has come. A created God, evidence in His law. I think that might be it. Is that it? Come on, go. All right, that's fine. So I want you to think about this. So if you cast your mind back, we know that fear God is the knowledge of Him. We need to be clear on who He is. We need to be clear that He is all-powerful and almighty, but we can trust Him to do what is right, because Satan says that justice is inconsistent with mercy. That that every sin must meet its punishment, urged Satan. So every sin has to be punished. That's the type of God construct that Satan projects. But creation, the invisible attributes of God, are clearly seen in His creation. And we see that God's law of love is outward moving. It's a never-ending circle of giving and receiving. Think of the selfish lake that dies. Think of the selfish person who wants to hoard their carbon dioxide. And think about this. If someone goes to commit suicide and you come into the room and see them there, what does the law of love impel you to do? to help them, to see them gasping for their last breaths, and you will want to save them. So they're transgressing the law of respiration. They're saying, you're not having my carbon dioxide anymore, plants. So when you bring them down and they're still breathing, do they need to be punished because they're transgressing God's law? They don't need to be externally punished. They don't need to be penalised. So we've got design law or imposed law. Do they need to have an external punishment imposed upon them? The law of love says no. That's the character of God, the never-ending circle of giving and receiving. So we can look at some of these next week, I think, because I think we can finish there, because the bottom line is know God, fear God, give glory to Him. All right, we've got two wings of the bird. Okay, we've got justice and mercy. Satan says that they are incompatible. God says that they come together to make the bird fly as He designed. So worship, I urge you to worship a creator God, to know Him, because that's fearing Him. Give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment has come. Thank you.